Motels are supposed to be just a cheap stop on a long trip. A warm bed, a locked door, and a few hours of rest before you hit the road again. But what happens when that locked door doesn't keep things out, and the night feels longer than it should? Our first story takes us to a lonely stretch of Interstate 40, where a traveler learns that sometimes the cheapest room comes at the highest cost. The highway had been empty for miles, just me, the dark ribbon of asphalt, and my headlights cutting through the night. I'd been driving for 10 hours straight, fighting waves of exhaustion. I told myself I'd push on another hour, but my eyes kept blurring, the white lines blending into a dizzying stream. When I saw the neon glow in the distance, it felt like a lifeline. Interstate in, vacancy. The letters buzzed and flickered, half dead, so from the road it only said, "Stayed in." It looked cheap, run down, but at that moment, it looked like salvation. The parking lot was mostly empty, cracked pavement shining under weak yellow lamps. 2 rusted cars sat crooked in the far corner. I killed the engine, and for a moment just listened to the silence pressing down outside. Inside the lobby, the air smelled faintly of dust and bleach. Behind a cracked plexiglass window sat an old man, skin gray under the fluorescent light, eyes clouded but sharp. He moved slowly, like every motion cost him effort. "Need a room?" I muttered, fishing for my wallet. He slid a brass key across the counter. The tag read 6. His lips curled in a tired half-smile. "Room 6. Always quiet in 6. His tone was odd, neither reassuring nor friendly. More like resigned. The hallway carpets were threadbare, stained with shapes I didn't want to imagine. The air felt damp, like the walls themselves sweated. My footsteps echoed too loud, though the hall was short. Room 6 sat at the very end. Its number plate hung crooked, one screw loose, paint peeling. The lock clicked too easily. Inside, the room was small but neat. Brown carpet, faded floral bedspread, a humming mini fridge, and heavy curtains that blocked all outside light. The TV sat in the corner, rabbit ear antenna bent, screen cracked. When I tried to turn it on, it hissed static so loud it rattled. I unplugged it. At first, I felt relief. The bed was lumpy but soft enough. I lay back, staring at the ceiling fan blades turning slow, hypnotic. Sleep came quick. It didn't last. I woke around 1 a.m. to a faint dripping sound. I staggered into the bathroom. The sink faucet was running full blast. I hadn't touched it. I turned it off, heart pounding. Back in bed, I closed my eyes. Then came the sound again. Drip, drip, drip. But it wasn't from the bathroom. It was closer. I sat up, scanning the room. That S when I saw it. A dark stain spreading on the carpet near the far wall. It shimmered wet in the dim light, creeping outward like it was alive. The smell hit me next. Iron, rot, blood. My throat locked. I stumbled back, bumping into the dresser. The TV exploded to life, even though I'd unplugged it. Through the snow of static, a face appeared. Pale, bruised, sunken eyes staring at me. His lips moved slowly, whispering words I couldn't hear. I froze, every nerve screaming. Then, the bathroom door slammed shut so hard the walls shook. I bolted for the exit, fumbling with the lock. The hallway lights flickered violently, buzzing like angry insects. Shadows darted across the walls, though I was alone. As I sprinted toward the lobby, I glanced through the plexiglass. The chair behind the desk was empty. The old man was gone. The lights above me hummed, then died, plunging the hall into darkness. I shoved through the outer door, lungs burning, and stumbled across the lot. When I looked back, every window of the motel was pitch black. Every window except one. Room 6's curtain glowed faint red, as if the neon sign had bled straight through the glass. Behind it, just for a second, I swore I saw the shape of someone pressed to the window, watching me leave. Some say motels don't just host travelers, they collect them. Maybe room 6 wasn't just a room at all, but a snare. And maybe the people who vanish along the interstate don't disappear into thin air. They just check in and never check out. But not all horrors hide inside the rooms. Sometimes the danger wears a name tag and greets you at the front desk. Our next story shows what happens when the motel clerk himself is part of the nightmare. Every motel has someone sitting at the desk waiting for travelers. They hand you a key, maybe tell you where the ice machine is, and then disappear into the back office. But what if the person greeting you at midnight isn't there to help, but to watch? This second story takes place on a rainy night in Kansas, where a traveler learns the clerk behind the counter wasn't just another employee, but part of the horror waiting inside. The rain had been relentless all day, sheets of water hammering the windshield, wipers barely keeping up. By the time I pulled off the highway, my hands ached from gripping the wheel. I just needed a place to dry off and sleep. I spotted the glow of a blue and red neon sign through the storm. Sunset Motel, vacancy. The sign buzzed faintly as if struggling to stay alive. I pulled into the lot, puddles rippling under the headlights. Only 2 other cars sat there, both coated in a thick layer of grime like they hadn't moved in weeks. The lobby door jingled as I stepped inside. The air was warm but stale, carrying the faint smell of old coffee. At the desk stood a man in his late 30s. The first thing I noticed was his smile, wide, toothy, fixed in place like a mask. "Rough night, huh?" he asked, his voice just a little too cheerful. "Yeah," I muttered. "Need a room just for one night?" He slid the ledger toward me. A real paper ledger, not a computer. My name looked lonely among the pages. Almost every entry was months old. He pushed a brass key across the counter. "Room 12, corner unit, nice and quiet." As I took the key, I noticed his hand. His fingernails were cracked and black at the edges, like he'd been digging in dirt, or something worse. The hallway leading to room 12 was dim, the carpet squishing underfoot as if waterlogged. The door creaked open, revealing a room stuck in the 70s. Floral wallpaper peeling at the edges, a bedspread stiff with age, and a lamp that buzzed faintly. I changed into dry clothes, but I couldn't shake the image of the clerk's smile. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. Too wide, too forced. Around midnight, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, just outside my door. I held my breath, waiting for them to pass. They didn't. They stopped right in front of my room. The doorknob rattled. I jumped up, heart pounding, and grabbed the chair to wedge under the handle. The knob stilled. Silence pressed in heavy, broken only by the sound of rain against the window. Then came a faint scratching. Not at the door, at the wall behind the bed. A dragging sound like fingernails scraping plaster. I pressed my ear against the wall. The sound grew louder, closer, until I could swear someone was on the other side. My mind raced. Room 11 should have been there. Was someone scratching from inside it? I threw on my jacket, grabbed my bag, and decided to leave. But when I opened the door, the hallway lights flickered, and standing at the end was the clerk. He wasn't smiling now. His face was blank, pale, eyes locked on me. He just stood there, unmoving, blocking the way out. I ducked back inside and slammed the door. The scratching at the wall grew frantic. The bathroom mirror fogged over, though no water was running. Slowly, letters formed on the glass. "Don't let him in." That was enough. I shoved the chair aside and bolted down the hall. The clerk was gone. The lobby lights flickered overhead as I ran through, the ledger on the counter blown open by some invisible gust. Every name on the page had been crossed out with thick black lines, every name except mine. When I burst into the storm outside, the lot was empty. My car was the only one there. The two other vehicles I'd seen earlier had vanished, leaving nothing but wet pavement. I drove until dawn, not daring to look back. They say small motels are dying out, but maybe some should have been buried long ago. I don't know what the clerk was or who he was working for, but I'll never forget that ledger. All those names crossed out, all those guests who checked in and never checked out. But sometimes the danger doesn't come from the room or the clerk. Sometimes it comes from the motel itself, its history, its walls, its secrets. Our next story takes us to a roadside lodge in Arizona, where the past refuses to stay buried. Some motels are old enough to have seen more than a lifetime of guests. They've held secrets, tragedies, and sometimes things that never left. When the desert is endless and the night is long, even the walls seem to remember. Our third story takes us to Arizona, where a lone traveler discovered that the motel itself wasn't just shelter, it was a witness, and it wanted to show him everything it had seen. I'd been on the road for 16 hours crossing the Arizona desert. The radio had lost signal hours ago, and my GPS kept cutting out. I was down to half a tank of gas when I saw a faded billboard glowing under the moonlight. Desert Lodge. Vacancy, pool, and cable. The place looked abandoned when I pulled in. A cracked sign leaned at an angle, half the letters missing. The pool was drained, nothing but cracked concrete at the bottom, but the office light burned dim yellow. Inside, the lobby smelled of dust and sun-baked wood. A woman sat behind the counter, her hair long and gray, her face lined but strangely expressionless. She didn't greet me, just slid a key across the counter. Room 3. When I asked how much, she whispered, "You'll pay in the morning?" The room was plain. Bed, dresser, a lamp that barely lit the corner. The desert air seeped in through the cracks in the window frame, carrying the smell of dust and sagebrush. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and lay down. Sleep never came. At 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of voices, muffled, like a crowd gathered just outside. I pulled the curtain back. The parking lot was empty. Then the voices grew clearer, pleading, crying, angry. They weren't outside. They were in the walls. I pressed my ear against the plaster. A woman screamed. A man shouted back. The sound of a gunshot cracked so loud it made me stumble. Then silence. The lamp flickered and died. In the dark, I saw movement in the mirror across the room. Not a reflection, scenes. Like a projector was playing inside the glass. I watched in horror as figures appeared. Guests in old-fashioned clothes, checking in, laughing, arguing, fighting. Then, dying. One by one. Each time the room reset, waiting for the next. The air turned icy. My breath fogged as the door to the bathroom creaked open. Inside, the tub filled with water, though no tap was running. Bubbles rose, and then, fingers. Pale, wrinkled hands clawed at the surface. A face broke through, mouth open in a silent scream. I ran to the door. The lock jammed. The key in my pocket burned hot, almost branding my skin. I forced it into the knob, twisting until it gave way. Outside, the hallway was dark, but every door was wide open. Inside each room, I saw the same scene, figures replaying their final moments, over and over. The woman at the front desk stood at the end of the hall. Her eyes glowed faint, her mouth unmoving, but her voice echoed all around me. The lodge remembers. The lodge keeps them. The lodge keeps you. I bolted past her down the steps into my car. When I looked back, the desert lodge was gone. Nothing but flat sand and desert shrubs under the moonlight. I drove until sunrise without stopping, convinced that if I pulled over, the next sign I saw would say, "Vacancy." They say the desert hides its dead well, but maybe not all of them. Some motels are more than just buildings. They're graveyards with walls, and every guest leaves a little piece of themselves behind. Some leave more than that. So tonight you heard 3 chilling, true motel horror stories. The quiet trap of Room 6 on Interstate 40, the smiling clerk of the Sunset Motel, and the haunted walls of the Desert Lodge. Motels are meant to be places of rest, but sometimes they're the very last place you'll ever sleep. If you enjoyed these stories and want more true horror every week, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow, and it makes sure you never miss another nightmare. And remember, the next time you see a flickering neon sign in the middle of nowhere, maybe just keep driving.